What's up, everybody? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here. I just saw The Batman and I wanted to jump on and share my thoughts with you. I took a few bullet points while watching the movie, or rather just afterwards, and so I've got some pros and some cons, and ultimately gonna let you know if this is one that is worth you checking out. If that sounds good to you, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel so that way you can see all of my other movie reviews as they come out. The Batman stars Robert Pattinson as the titular character and Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, and is directed by Matt Reeves, who also directed the most recent Planet of the Apes movies, as well as Cloverfield and the remake of Let Me In. So right off the bat, this is going to be a very different Batman than anything that we've gotten to date. We're finally getting a real true detective story. I really feel like every Batman we've gotten so far has had a different flavor. You know, with some of the older Joel Schumacher movies, you have like this Happy Meal children's toy version of Batman. With Christopher Nolan's movies, you have like this high-tech ninja Batman. But in this movie, we finally get what is really my favorite version of Batman, which is a dark noir detective Batman. I also appreciate that this is not another origin story. We've already seen that several times, and it's cool to see that we're skipping forward a couple of years. I believe they say this is year 2 Batman. And as such, we're really starting to see him figure himself out. At this point, Batman has spent the last 2 years just obsessing over the mission. So much so that he's really on the verge of breaking. And this movie really explores what happens when you reach peak obsession, where you have nowhere to go but either shatter or figure it out. Honestly, I think it's really cool that we're getting to see a different side to Batman that maybe has been touched on before, but in this movie, they really dive deep into his psyche. Not to say that this movie is all just super heady and that you're not going to get a lot of action. There are some great action sequences in it. But with this movie, we're really seeing Batman evolve in ways that we haven't seen before. And as such, I am super excited for the sequel and whatever else they decide to do with this Batman. That said, I do think this movie is going to be pretty divisive. I know right now it's gotten a lot of positive reviews, but I've also heard some people that just plain didn't like the movie. In fact, when I went to see it, there was a guy sitting right next to me and my girlfriend, and afterwards he just kind of turned to us and was like, I don't know how I feel about this one. He felt so strongly, he just had to let two complete strangers know. So some of the things that I thought they got absolutely right in this movie. For one, the casting. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was very skeptical going into this one. Robert Pattinson is still a skinny, lanky guy, so he's not going to be another Batfleck. But as this version of Batman, as the dark, depressed, lacking sleep, obsessing over nothing but vengeance type of Batman, he absolutely nails it. Also with Zoe Kravitz, I was skeptical. I hadn't really seen her in anything that made me believe that she could pull off a significant version of Catwoman, and I was wrong. Although she did have a few moments in the movie where her lines were a bit cheesy, overall I think she did really well. Now that could have been just her inability to deliver the lines, or it could have just been that the lines were written oddly. Certainly, regardless of that, this is the most fleshed out version of Catwoman that we have gotten. I also love what they did with Paul Dano's Riddler. I was worried because I feel like his appearance is very boyish and almost innocent, but it's almost because of that he works so well as this version of the Riddler. Despite how horrific and atrocious the Riddler is in this movie, he weaves in this kind of innocence and pity into the cocky and evil nature of the Riddler. Honestly, there's no weak links as far as the acting is concerned. Jeffrey Wright, Peter Sarsgaard, Andy Serkis, Colin Farrell, they all get gold stars. In addition to the casting and the acting, the city of Gotham itself is a whole additional character that I thought was fantastic. Both visually, with the cinematography and the set design, it is flawless, but also as a character. You see, in order for someone like Batman to exist in a somewhat authentic world, the city would have to be so far beyond saving that even someone like Gordon is willing to not only trust Batman, but to almost exclusively trust him. The city has to be horribly corrupt. And oh boy, is it. In addition to that, I want to shout out Michael Giacchino, who is the composer for the movie. The score in this movie is incredible. There were several moments while watching it that I was just kind of pulled out of it, and I was just listening to the music and I was like, holy cow, this sounds amazing. It was also a really just interesting story all around. They very much went for this kind of serial killer, Seven, David Fincher kind of vibe, or maybe even something like Saw, the first one, not any of the sequels. But yeah, I really dug how they wove that into the story of Batman. That said, there were also some weaknesses, I think, in some of the writing. Not to say that the writing is poor. In fact, it's pretty great. But still, there were a few moments where things would happen in very convenient ways at the exact time that they needed to happen. And I couldn't help but just rolling my eyes at a few points, thinking like, okay, there was no way that anyone knew that this would happen right then or just like that. Also, if we're nitpicking, there was a particular fight scene in the movie that, and I may be wrong on this, but it looked like they swapped out one of the characters with a CG character. Now, I totally understand that you have to do this at times when the maneuver is just not safe or something that physically a person couldn't really do, but this was just in a regular hand-to-hand combat situation where one of the characters performed a somewhat acrobatic move, and I get if the actor couldn't pull off the move, but it was shot in a way where you could have easily just swapped in a stunt double. So I'm not sure what happened there. Again, I could totally be wrong about that. I don't know for a fact that it was CG, but you can kind of tell when a human moves in real life versus in a CG element, and this looked CG for sure. Also, Batman takes on an ungodly amount of damage in this movie. So much so that there were several points where I was like, how is he even walking, let alone fighting all these bad guys? I feel like they could have reined that in a bit because it does get to a point in several instances where it's just unbelievable. And in some versions of Batman, that would be totally fine. But here, they're going for this ultra realistic take. So if you have him taking on so much damage, it's just not realistic to think that he would be able to continue. Finally, as far as my negatives, I do think the movie was a bit long. It's almost 3 hours long. And although I did enjoy it all the way through, I feel like it would have been better served if they had trimmed it down a bit or maybe even split it up over several episodes of a miniseries. The movie itself is just much slower paced than I think a lot of people are going to be used to, which serves the story because of its tone, but it's kind of hard to keep some people's attention, especially in the modern day, sitting in a theater for 3 hours. But of course, no movie is perfect. I do think this is one of the better Batman movies that I've seen, and I've seen all of them, except for I think the 1966 Batman movie. I would certainly rank this one somewhere maybe in my top 3. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Did you enjoy this movie as much as I did? Did you have a lot of issues with it? Were some of your issues different than the ones that I had? Also, if you want to see more Batman reviews, I am reviewing every single Batman live action movie. So I have a playlist right over in the corner. You can check that out. Otherwise, if you want to catch more movie reviews, trailer reactions, things like that, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one. All right. Be good.